What's up, bro?
Aye.
There's not a rule that you have to use the 3 subs.
He's the best left back.
1,000 to 1, now the odds they're giving us. A lot of them are in for a surprise. We've got a mighty team that no one else has seen. The stars of Canada are on the rise. But who can lay down odds on the hearts of 11 men? Oh Canada, our hearts are ringing true. We've won for you before and we'll win for you again. Oh Canada, we'll proudly play for you. Dale Mitchell has touches like no one else has got. In Mexico we'll show them how to play. And striker George Pecos has a rifle for a shot. And Tino Lantieri saves the day. Bobby Landerduzzi and Chris Wilson will be there. Their years of dedication have come through. Their courage and their pride with their teammates they have shared. Oh Canada, we'll share it now with you. But who can lay down odds on the hearts of 11 men? Oh Canada, our hearts are ringing true. We've won for you before and we'll win for you again. Oh Canada, we'll proudly play for you. To Mexico we go with an optimistic heart. There is nothing that we cannot do. Reagan Gray and Samuel Bridge and Sweeney are just parts of a mighty team that proudly plays for you. But who can lay down odds on the hearts of 11 men? Oh Canada, our hearts are ringing true. We've won for you before and we'll win for you again. Oh Canada, we'll proudly play for you.
Hey, hello everybody and welcome back to the Third Sub Podcast live pregame show for Canadian men's national team World Cup qualifying action, second leg, Canada versus Haiti, second round of World Cup qualifiers. This is a big one. And obviously, shout out to our partners over at Macy Sports for sponsoring the show. I'm your co-host, Alexander Gangaruzik, joined as always by Samuel Rowan. I mean, Sam, before we dive into all this is quite the game we have on our plates, don't we? My goodness.
Well, yeah, the match was big enough to begin with, and then it's been a crazy day in terms of news stories, especially, coming out of the Haiti side of things and, barbs being thrown back and forth, guys absent from the lineup. This isn't the first time this year we've seen calamity in terms of who Haiti's going to have available. And I guess I'll just say off the hop, and I think this has been backed up by pretty much everyone I've seen out there covering Canadian soccer. You can want Canada to win this match and also think that this is a terrible shame that some of Haiti's best players aren't going to be available. That's not what you want. You want to see best on best. So it's obviously tough, but we're gonna do our best to dive into what happened, dive into some of the players that are going to be new into the lineup because it's a story to track. And I know Ben did it in our kind of pre-show promotion stuff, but this is one of, if not the biggest match for Canada in a very long time. We're going to kind of outline what it means and a bit of the history behind it as well. And honor to, be covering it and getting revved up for this one. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's it. And I just to start with to preface with all this Haiti stuff that's going on. It's sad because I like this Haiti team just for everything they've gone through in terms of a country, let alone a footballing nation. To even be where they are is something, but they just continue to be marred by just what seems to be best put as incompetence at the confederation level, or I guess the organizational level. And that was reflected at the U23s where they had massive travel issues. Half of their party didn't even show up to the games on time. They played their first game with 9 players, and that cost them a chance to go through. They were a good team. They gave Canada...
It didn't help Canada either.
It didn't help Canada, but they gave Canada a tough game at full strength. They gave El Salvador a tough game at all strength. But, they just continue to be bundled by this. And, I mean, this one, it's tough to blame it on them because it sounds more just the U.S. having some questionable travel and visa policies, which as two guys who follow the Vancouver Whitecaps, we can almost sympathize with Haiti for their issues with visas because it's something we've seen before, especially as of late. But that's tough because it's good players being effective. It's their starting goalkeeper. Their goalkeeper is significantly better than any other option on their roster. It's
And
not
their best player from the last match, and probably
for
their kind of
sure.
perennial highest contributor of any guy on the pitch. That's kind of where everything starts and ends for Haiti.
And then a starting midfielder, which for an area where they already struggle in the pitch and midfield, that hurts. And then just another forward, which they're a good team. They're good at scoring goals. So those are three big absences. The other one, the fourth player, I don't think he started, so it's not as big of an absence. But just to lose three starters, you already have a half-fit Duckins Nazan as he struggles through fitness. He starts tonight, as we'll kind of go into in a bit. But even then, just look at that roster. The goalkeeper is really the big absence, because it's not only just the saves that Johnny Placida's made, but it's just his ball distribution, how key he is to jumpstarting the Haitian attack. No matter who else they have in goal, they're just the way they're going to play is going to be altered by his absence. So it certainly hurts to not have him in the lineup today.
Well, yeah. So Alex, I'll let you say the name of the new keeper because you have it down probably better than I do. But I'll run a little bit into his resume or lack thereof so far. So
yeah, it's Josué Duverger, a 21-year-old goalkeeper, 2000 born, who
March 29th, 2000. So a youngster
young
there.
Goalkeeper, a very young goalkeeper. Yeah, he plays in the 4th division of Portugal. So I'll let you run that off because the Canada lineup is out and I'm just processing that.
Okay, well, we'll let Alex dive into that Canada lineup. And yeah, so 4th division in Portugal, and even there, like the information spotty, difficult to find. Doesn't look like he's got a ton of appearances in that league. So this is very much into the fire. I mean, it's a match that Haiti's going to have to go out and get goals, and they're going to have to try to make it wide open. So I guess in some ways that, if you needed a cagey 0-0, maybe that puts more pressure on the keeper, but he's going to be feeling it for sure. That's the spot where I think downgrade is most obvious. And Duckins Nazan, I mean, we're just going to have to see how fit he is. Obviously, they were managing him in the last match, weren't confident starting him. He's a really important player when fit, and it's, I guess, good to see him back in the lineup. But the question is, how much can he really contributed in this one as well? And Alex, I'll let you dive into the Canadian lineup here because I have not seen it yet. I'll probably scroll on the Twitter while you start to break it down.
Yeah, so it looks like one change as Daniil Henry has slotted in.
That's surprising.
Considering his comments, he was saying that a lot of guys
4D chess there, you think?
Yeah, I guess some guys, Amber's flags were a lot closer to green than they were red. That's for sure. Apparently. Because Borjan stays in goal. It's a back three of Daniil Henry, Steven Vittoria, and Scott Kennedy. So more 3 traditional center backs, which is interesting. Alistair Johnson sticks in, but Richie Larea comes out. That one actually doesn't surprise me. I thought he looked a bit leggy last game. For me, the surprise, Mark Anthony Kay, Steven Eustachio in the midfield looks more of like a 3-5-2. Alfonso Davies. For me, Jonathan Osorio, I thought he wasn't going to be able to.
That's really surprising.
I mean, I trust the doctors. If he's fit, he's fit. I'm just surprised that he's obviously starting, but I've liked his game. I really liked his game on the weekend, got an assist. He's such a hard worker. You like to have him. I'm just surprised that he's fit enough to contest this match. And then obviously the big 2 up front, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin. But again, for Canada, it's just that bench. There's always going to be a good starting lineup, but just looking at the bench for the fact that they'll have, just looking down the list, Sakari Bogiard, Tejan Buchanan, Lucas Cavallini, Theo Corbianu, Liam Fraser, Junior Hoyler, Richie Larea, Liam Miller, there's Samuel Piet, David Wotherspoon, Frank String, just down the list, there's options on the bench. It's a good starting 11. I think the only concern is that Daniil Henry and Steven Vittoria partnership, a little lack of speed there, which for a Haiti team that has a lot of speed, that's concerning. But then again, Haiti's playing a 4-4-2 with Nazan and Pierrot up front. It's more direct. That's how they played last game. They caused problems to Canada when they're playing more direct. So by having 2 pillars in the air, such as Henry and Vittoria, it could be a way to counter that, force them to put it on the ground and run. And, Haiti didn't look as good when they were running last game because Canada's line plays quite deep. So this actually could be the sort of tactical tweak that they need to kind of counter Haiti's twin towers, say, threat of Nazan and Pierrot up front. It's a bit more sizey, a bit more physical, a bit more 2 number 9s that really caused Canada problems in the second half.
Yeah, so as I'm looking at it here and sort of thinking about it, we talked about in our preview stuff prior to these matches, how, you're a little scared of a Henry Vittoria pairing, but I think that's why Johnson out at right back makes sense, because he's going to be up and down that flank, and he's obviously got the defensive attributes to come back and help out. You've also got Eustachio, who can certainly sit deep and provide support. And I think you've got a pacier center back in Kennedy, who on the left side is a little more capable of, Davies can roam forward, and him and Osorio tracking back can sort of take care of business on the left. So I like how there's a little bit more built-in support there, a more defensively oriented right back that can definitely help out. And that doesn't mean Johnson can't show off his passing ability and get forward, but it's probably not going to be quite to the same degree as Richie Laray. And I think that largely makes sense. I just hope that Canada comes out in this match, and I don't know. Yeah, I'll kind of throw it to you. What do you think is the right mentality going into this one? Like, how do you treat this? Obviously, you got the favorable result on the road. You're in hospitable conditions in Chicago, about as comfortable as you're going to be. Is this a match where you try to go out and, secure a devastating blow in the first 15, 20 minutes? Or are you content to just kind of sit, let this one play out, and sort of, counter whatever Haiti tries to bring at you? How would you approach it? Are you cautious? Are you aggressive? Are you somewhere in between? I don't know. I guess depending on this lineup, you could kind of go several ways, because they were pretty composed in Haiti, and that kind of made sense. But I don't know exactly where they're going to go sort of stylistically in this one.
It's a good question, because if you're going to go for it aggressively, you have an away goal. You can be a bit aggressive. But the thing is with Haiti, with them being the away team, as soon as they get a second goal, it's in their favor. You can give away a goal if you're Canada. So I kind of think I take balance, play balance, because Haiti is going to need to come to Canada. And the more Haiti pushes up the field, the more space you leave for Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, the Kyle Larin, Jonathan Osorio. That benefits Canada. I mean, obviously, the way if you look at their lineup, by removing a guy like Richie Laryea, this Canadian team isn't actually that fast right now, other than Davies. Because I mean, even a guy like Jonathan David, he's good in straight line, running. He's a fast guy, but he's not necessarily a pacey kind of winger type. So, that's really the speed in this Canadian lineup is in Davies. So
am I crazy if I say that Kennedy might be the second most pacey guy in that starting lineup?
Let me see, because I mean, a guy like Alistair Johnson is sneaky quick, but yeah, Stephen Vittoria, Daniel Henry, not most fleet of foot. Mark Anthony Kay, he's more of a leggy marathon type runner. Stephen Eustachio, similar. Yeah, it really isn't the fastest lineup from Canada, and that's fine. They control the ball really well. The surface, you can actually pass the ball more than 5 feet on this surface and predict where the ball is going to go. Keep the ball. Make Haiti chase it. You have superior technical skill in the midfield in particular, even on that poor turf. Like Jonathan Osorio, Mark Anthony Kay, and Stephen Eustachio had the Haitian midfielders on strings. Playing on a grass surface, do that. They need to come to you. You have that advantage in your back pocket. I think that's going to open up space for your Jonathan Davids, your Kyle Larins, Alphonso Davies to whip in low crosses. I think, looking at that, don't play cautious, because that's definitely not in Canada's DNA, especially with some of the defenders they have on the pitch. Some of these guys like Daniel Henry, Stephen Vittoria, they're good defenders. Heck, they can even be great defenders when they're chasing the game, but they're not necessarily defenders where you want the game. You don't want them to think too much. So I think you find a balance between being too gung-ho, too aggressive, because you don't want to let Haiti get into a track meet. But I think if you find the right approach of just fizzing the ball around, eat 70% possession for the first 20 minutes, get Haiti frustrated. I think the end of that first half, if Canada gets a goal or two, it's curtains. And I think the second half is going to be similar to the Suriname game. It's just going to be racking up the goals, sending a message. But if you let Haiti get a goal and let them be confident, as kind of Herdman said yesterday in his press conference, they're a chaotic team. They thrive in chaos. They thrive when the game gets wild. So you don't want to do that for them. You don't want to play the game into their hands.
Yeah, I think that's a good breakdown. You try to absorb a little bit. Obviously, they're going to come out with some fire and initial pressure, but Canada is set up to maintain possession, to frustrate, to, outclass and outskill as the match goes on. That kind of seems like a good recipe for success. Not a lot of statistics available from these fixtures, especially when you're down in other countries. We're not getting, the advanced analytics, but Canada controlling more of the possession in the first match. Actually, one less shot on the frame, but nonetheless, I don't know if that was necessarily reflective of the overall play. See Haiti a lot more involved defensively. And then final third passing, pretty choppy for both teams. I think that was, we said choppy, greasy, slow, we used all grindy. We used all these different words in the lead up. And I mean, that's what it was, right? It was relatively low event. It wasn't a Picasso. It wasn't very pretty, but it got the job done for Canada. And the most professional, the most, stereotypical road victory I think I've seen a Canada team pull off in a very long time. Like, that was a mature performance. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't maybe the, 3 or 4-0 thumping that some might have been hoping for, but it definitely got the job done. And I think is a good building block for this Canada team to kind of, gain some momentum off of.
Yeah, I think it was, to be honest, it was a fantastic road performance. I mean, yes, it's a 1-0. People say, oh, it's Haiti, they should be dominating that game. It's CONCACAF, 30-degree weather, that turf, just the surface was abysmal. Like, they were struggling to string the ball around. Every time it bounced, it would go either way. The groundsman was, I don't know what the heck he's thinking with all the rubber pellets he put on the field. Like, you might need to get a shovel and remove some of that rubber pellets. It wasn't a good surface, just playing in that afternoon heat, midday heat. I don't know why it was played at 5:00 local time, considering the heat. I think Canada did well to manage the conditions and get the result they did. I think 53% possession, considering the surface, that surprises me. Obviously, Haiti got good chances. I do think score effects played a role. Obviously, Haiti was chasing the result. They needed a goal. They got their best chances when they played more direct. And I think it's good that Canada's made the necessary tactical adjustments by putting Daniel Henry and Stephen Vittori to counter that directness of Duckins, Nazan, and Franzi Piero, because I do think they did cause problems for the Canada defense. But for me, I think it was all about just considering the surface. Heck, even a 0-0 would have been a fantastic result for Canada. You get some sort of, maybe in that case you wouldn't have gotten an advantage, but just playing in these conditions with Haiti's lineup getting battered. I mean, apparently Nazan's half fit. Heck, someone like Hervé Bazile, who they've started, is also not fully fit. This game definitely benefits Canada. That's played in Chicago. It's played on a nice surface. Their guys are fit. They got a deep squad if they need to turn to injuries. I think they did more than they needed to in that home leg by winning, getting an away goal, getting an advantage. I thought it was a job well done from Canada.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the way it went. I know it wasn't that work of art. And I was trying to find this tweet. I think Matt Doyle from MLS.com may have deleted it, but he said something to the effect of, oh, what a terrible performance from Canada. It's just like, that is losing track of the greater picture and maybe lacking that context of, Canadian fans and the way we've been burned before. I think, I don't want to speak for all Canadian fans out there, but I think most are happy to take such a kind of mature, composed performance, even if the scoreline's not a massive one.
I'm just surprised from a guy, Matt Doyle, who watched a U.S. team who was full of talent, but similar to Canada in 2017, traveled to Trinidad and Tobago and get battered on a huge away day that cost them the World Cup. Like, it's CONCACAF. There's no such thing as a bad road win in CONCACAF. There's going to be a bad home win in CONCACAF where you scrape through 1-0, you're playing in a nice surface. But especially if you're Canada or the U.S., there's no such thing as a bad away win in CONCACAF because it's so brutal. Just looking at the situation they had to deal with. I mean, in that Haiti game, like, yes, a lot of the guys in MLS are used to playing on turf, but have you ever, I was so surprised by how bad the artificial turf is. I've never seen that, visually bad artificial turf. Artificial turf's bad when you play on it.
It looked like they rolled out carpet. Bad. It looked like carpet, which is never a good sign.
It looked bad. Usually it just it plays bad. When you're actually on the field playing, it's bad. It never looks bad from the TV. I've never seen turf not to rag on the turf, but I'm just saying that's one among many away factors. Basically, in CONCACAF, when you're away, you got the travel, which is obviously number one, but then you got just some of the state of the stadiums, how physical the game was too. Haiti was getting away with some tough licks on Alphonso Davies. I mean, hopefully the medical staff gave him more than enough ice packs, because he certainly deserved them. No, I don't buy that. There's no such thing as a bad away result in Canada.
I found the tweet. Canada played like trash. That was the quote. It was a jarring one, certainly.
I mean, what's the saying go? And another man's trash is another man's treasure. I mean,
exactly.
It's certainly applicable there.
The other thing I wanted to point out, I don't know if I was the only one that noticed, but was there a bit of like a sort of vignette on the camera? Like the top two corners of the screen were sort of blurred out.
Yeah, no, it looked like there was like one of those filters, like a weird lens, and it just felt like you were watching the game through like a peephole on someone's door.
It was very, very strange. About 2 or 3 minutes in, I was like, "Wait, is it going to look like this the entire match?" And the answer was yes.
I guess kind of rounding off here, or going through the list. Let's talk a bit more Haiti. We talked about them at the beginning. We talked about the lineup here, but we'll just bring it up on screen in terms of Haiti's lineup for today's game that obviously did come out a bit before. After playing a 4-3-3 on Saturday against Canada, they've come out with a 4-4-2. They've got Nazon and Piero up top. There's a few interesting names. Steven Saba, the former Montreal midfielder. I don't know about you, Sam. I thought Steven Saba looked really good when he came on. He had some good tackles. He was lively. I think that's a huge add for them in the midfield because they looked outmatched. I think he's going to be a good match against Kei Eustachio Osorio. Otherwise, Hervé Bazile, he scored against Canada in 2019. I'm pretty sure he plays in France in Ligue 2 for Le Havre, but it's a good level. He's a good player. Otherwise, the goalkeeper and at the back, it is a bit, sketchy, a bit hairy, but a lot of names in that front six in particular. I think there's lots to like there if you're Haiti in terms of your chances of scoring goals. It's just, can they keep Canada out of scoring in their net? That's more the big question looking at the selection for today's Haiti game.
Yeah, I mean, Saba's been bright. I feel like that's a good inclusion in the starting 11. And then I mean, I just keep circling back to Nazon. How fit is he? How much can him and Piero kind of combine and create stuff? You mentioned how they're direct and how that's going to match up against the center backs. I think that's the primary matchup to watch, right? How many chances is Haiti going to get, especially if Canada plays structured? You have to feel like it's going to be relatively limited, but they're going to have to rely on the quality of those guys in key moments, or as you mentioned, sort of the chaos factor. Can they create, a dirty area where there's just limbs and the ball's bouncing around back and forth, and one of their strikers ends up on the end of it and can slot it home? That kind of feels like they're going to score in one of those two ways. And Daniil Henry's got a big job to come in and keep things composed at the back, because it's been a mixed bag for him so far. He's coming back from injury and kind of getting reintegrated into the national team. So I don't want to be too harsh, but Daniil has. It's tough in big moments at times for him. So I really hope that he's able to have a strong match today.
That's lots of good points. I mean, especially in terms of that attack, it's going to be one heck of a night. Probably the best test for the 3-5-2 for Canada. And I think as outlined there, as a result, just looking the fact Duckins Nazon, the fact that he was kept quiet last game, he came off the bench, the fact that he's going to start no matter how unfit he is, he's a finisher. His fitness level shouldn't affect his ability to put the ball in the net. Canada needs to do what they can to keep the ball away from him. If not, Franzi Piero, I thought he looked good. He almost scored that bicycle kick. My goodness, that attempt was audacious at best. Long ball, chest, bicycle, top corner. What a save from Milan.
Casual skill. He took that so comfortably.
Like, he didn't do it. He just looked like he was half asleep, and all of a sudden, oh my god, he almost scored a worldie. My goodness. So Franzi Piero, very talented, and Hervé Bazile is the wild card. He barely played in the last game. He's usually one of the star men. He sounds like he's been dealing with fitness issues. Sounds like Haiti's kind of supposedly throwing the gauntlet in and just playing all their players, fitness or not. I mean, may as well. Last game, this is a little more important than Gold Cup, and they'll just deal with the repercussions of any potential injuries. Hervé Basile comes in, technical winger. Obviously, speed is, especially with his supposed injuries, going to be an issue. But again, another guy where Canada needs to close down those half spaces. Just don't give Pierrot, Nazon, Basile any time, because as they've shown, they can punish you. If you take away their space, these three guys in particular are not really runners, especially when two of them are injured. So I think that certainly plays into Canada's hands, and they should recognize that defensively.
It's interesting because you think of CONCACAF and you think of both of these nations just like at a big picture level, and you'd probably think more athleticism and, pacey wide play. And that doesn't seem to be what this match is going to look like. It's going to be more technical. It's going to be maybe at times for Haiti more direct. It's going to be more tactical. I'm interested for how this one's going to turn out. And I like that it's in a very neutral site. There's really not a ton of advantages for either teams other than the fact Canada's probably just a little more comfortable in this environment. They've been here before, played a match here before. But that kind of brings us, why don't we pull it up now?
I was going to say.
Some Chicago fun facts. We're in Chicago. Bridgeview, Illinois, if we want to get really technical. But it's, as Ben's got it up there on the screen, Bridgeview isn't actually Chicago. I didn't even know that. It was not.
It's like a good hour or so outside the city. It's like equivalent of, I'd say, like Abbotsford almost compared to Vancouver. So
we've bragged on this in our MLS shows about how terrible the location was and how it was holding the fire back. But in addition to that, it's the home of Barack Obama, home of deep dish pizza, which is a divisive topic at the best of times. Alex, I don't know how you feel about deep dish.
I love deep dish pizza. I went to Chicago. It was fantastic. I thought it was certainly, I think it's called Giordano's, the famous one there when I was in Chicago.
It's a classic.
That was fantastic. So I'm a big fan of the deep dish.
Do you like deep dish pizza though in its own right, or do you like deep dish more than other pizza? You're not like deep dish.
I'm a sucker to the traditional, but I'm just saying, don't sleep on deep dish. But it's like
I think I'm with
oranges.
you there. Yeah, it's a different experience, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's I like a good New York pie, for example. I like a traditional, just Italian pizza, proper homemade, tradition. There's good in all three. So if you're gonna go between the three, but if you're gonna go for Chicago, you can't ignore the deep dish, as they like to call it there. It's a whole experience. You wait for 60 minutes. You're like, is it worth it? But then you put the first bite in your mouth and it's just like, boom. So hopefully Canada's players, they do the job tonight and they go full Philip Deneau and just rock out on the deep dish. Hopefully they order it at halftime and it gets in time, because don't miss out on the deep dish. But sorry, I'll let you finish the rest of those.
It's all good. I'm still trying to figure out what that accent was there. It was part Boston, part New York, part just, I don't know, something else. Yeah. I'm not sure about that one, but Chicago's also the home of the Twinkie. You learn something new every day. Invented spray paint. I don't think the city of Chicago invented spray paint itself, but I guess someone in Chicago did. And then, very random fact, they banned pay toilets in 1973. Didn't know that was a big issue, but good on Chicago, I guess.
Yeah, good on Chicago. Good on Chicago for letting, hopefully the toilets are for the people. Hopefully that just didn't mean banning all toilets altogether, but if toilets are free to use, well, I guess there is the argument that paid toilets would help cities pay for cleaning, and in that case, I am in support of paid toilets, but otherwise, let the people use their toilets. As wild as that is to say on
this pregame show is taking a very strange turn, but there are some Chicago fun facts for you, even though the match is being played, as you said, about an hour outside the city. But hey, we got to cover the location no matter where it is, so we can only play with the cards we're dealt, right?
Exactly. But I guess before, on the other end of this quick break that we'll make happen here in short seconds, we're going to talk about war. Haiti versus Canada, the absolute chaos that has gone on in Twitter this morning. But before we do that, just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Macy's Sports for graciously sponsoring the show as we've reached the halftime point of this show. Obviously, shout out to Macy Sports, where Mark DeSantos actually does shop on occasion. Obviously, he hasn't been there in a while, but I'm sure the first thing he's going to do when he's back in Vancouver is go and freshen up his kit collection at Macy Sports. And, before he does, I bet you should too. They got good deals. They got all sorts of good footy stuff for the Euros, the Copa America. Heck, you can get some good Canada merch there. We're currently doing a boots giveaway on our Twitter and Instagram. So if you're like me and your boots are starting to get holes in it, may as well enter that and get a chance at winning some pretty awesome Adidas custom limited edition boots. So just shout out to Macy Sports for all that they do for local soccer, for our show, and just shout out to them once again.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with your, bog standard Copa Mundials or whatever they might be, but these are some impressive boots. It's is it like a Marvel or sort of like
it's Marvel limited?
It's a Marvel like
X-Men
collab edition. They look awesome. Yeah, I mean, get in on that if you haven't already. And then also just got to say, wonder how much longer that graphic is going to be relevant for the Vancouver Whitecaps. We might get the rest of this year, but I don't know after that. Or you might have to think of some new marketing material.
Hopefully the new coach goes there. We're going to have to make him go at that point, because he's missing out if he doesn't go anyways. No matter who it is, even if it's a legend like someone of Thierry Henry's level, all the way down to whoever else they hire. But Haiti. Shall we talk about it? War, the absolutely
whatever on earth that statement was.
I mean, first of all, we'll preface that this statement came out hours after it was revealed this morning that it was such a sad photo. I don't think we have the photo here, but just imagine it's a photo taken by one of the players of 4 of their players just standing alone by a ticketing agent because they found out they couldn't fly because there's some sort of visa issues that's prohibiting. 4 of them, including 3 starters. Antoine was the last name of the one. I forget the other. And then obviously the goalie, Johnny Placide, the star goalkeeper, the huge absence. The reason why Haiti is currently playing with the goalkeeper, a 21-year-old goalkeeper from the Portuguese 4th Division. It was a sad photo. Obviously they couldn't travel. And then Haiti's kind of had a history of these things. The federation's gone through a lot of turmoil. They're struggling to do a lot of things. If you talk to anyone from Haiti, incompetence is a word that's been thrown around a lot. No idea what they're doing.
Shambles,
whatever kind of chaotic word you want to use to describe, something bad. And that's Haiti's federation. I mean, a few hours later, they dropped this. So for those of you who haven't brushed up in your grade 8 French, basically general translation, they put out a statement with some photos saying that they were arrived in Chicago, et cetera, and then they're like, Canada has declared war on us, which was quite the blunt way to put it. They said that Canada wasn't reciprocating, something to do with accreditations for all of their staff, which is quite the accusation. Obviously we don't know how true that is, because they said Canada had gotten extra accreditation in Haiti, but they hadn't reciprocated. And they weren't respecting the basic decency of soccer. And then they said that Canada was forcing them to get their COVID-19 tests in before they were ready, well before they even trained yesterday, which I don't know where the problem between that is. That seems more like good health and safety and protocols in my eyes. And then they're saying that Canada didn't communicate fast enough, that their asks are illegal and are psychologically destroying of Haiti's team. So basically they're saying all this to sum it up. Screw Canada. We're going to, put everything we've got on the field. We're going to try to take care of business and try to qualify the best we can despite everything we've dealt. But I mean, first of all, what a deflection. Second of all, just the words in this statement. I mean, what do we even make of that? It's just so surprising, so jarring even to see what they put on Facebook today.
Well, it's especially jarring after, hearing a player in Placide kind of step out to the contrary and say that the federation has been in shambles and it's been a complete mess. And he kind of, implicitly at least put the blame on them. So for them to not get in front of it and then decide after the fact they're going to put out the statements, definitely interesting. I mean, Haiti does have its kind of the, fool me once, fool me twice, can't get fooled again kind of thing, where they have a history of not being prepared and, getting blindsided by this kind of stuff last minute. Now, the fact that their country is in fact Haiti, and that lots of countries, maybe aren't taking super kindly to visitors from Haiti at the moment, definitely doesn't play to their advantage, and that's understandable. But at the same time, these are the kind of things like this match has been, on the books for long enough for them to get all the paperwork together, or at least know, hey, if these 4 guys can't travel for whatever reason, it shouldn't have been a surprise. It shouldn't have been guys standing at the desk, tickets in hand, not able to travel, right? So, I mean, again, I want to go all the way back to the start of the show. Not happy to see this happen. Like, I want to see Haiti's best roster, but at the same time, I think you have to take ownership. It's your job as a federation. Like, otherwise the players could just gather themselves and go represent the country. The federation's there to ensure that these kinds of things go smoothly. So to point the finger, to say that, Canada didn't provide enough badges, or is changing the standards for COVID testing last minute, I frankly just don't buy.
Yeah, and it's just, again, they don't have the benefit of the doubt right now. And it's just similar to, say, the Trinidad and Tobago situations where the federation just needs to step up. There's all sorts of, wild things going on. Just some of the stories we saw, for example, there's one we saw this morning, the fact that Michaëlle Jean, former Governor General of Canada, is involved in the Haitian Federation, or she was supposed to. But then apparently there's other people saying that she was announced as a new president. She didn't actually accept the role, so they preemptively announced it, just showing how wild things are. So it sounds
wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
So it sounds like she's either worked with them and isn't with them anymore, or she is there but just in the background. And for me, that's just, even if she's involved at any point, the fact that a former Canadian, Governor General, that's a huge position of power. You would have thought someone like that would have cleared it out, but then it would explain a lot if she isn't with them anymore because they preemptively announced her participation. It's really sad for the state of Haitian football, because they have this, what seems to be, maybe not golden generation, as we've argued in the last show. That's not maybe the right qualification, but a promising generation, one of the best they've had since arguably the 70s, when they were one of the powers of CONCACAF. They have talented players playing in Europe, in North America, a good team, that one that made a run at the Gold Cup. Had they not, who knows? They have a chance tonight to make it to the Octo, and even if they don't, obviously the fact that the draw kind of screwed them over a bit, they had a chance to. I think it's unfortunate for Haiti that they might waste away some of their prime years due to just incompetence in their federation, and it's a sentiment that's echoed by fans. If you read the comments on the Facebook post there, some of the Haitian fans were brutal. I think one I saw that stuck out to me is, he said, yeah, no wonder Canada acted like they did. They were faced with a bunch of incompetence. And I was like, well, that's quite the strong language, but it really shows how tenuous the relationship is. As you mentioned, Placide also called out the federation. So it shows how tenuous the relationship between the federation and then its fans and its players. So it's quite the story. It's quite the ongoing story. You hate to see it.
Well, so I want to bring up Brady C's comment here really quick. If both games were played in Chicago, this could have been avoided. So I think that's a really good point.
That's an interesting point.
What would we think of the idea of if they just both played each match in a neutral location? Would this have, helped alleviate these problems? And I guess on the flip side, Haiti's probably going, well, if we have the opportunity for home field advantage, we want to use that, right? So I guess it's a balance of, they obviously wanted, to try to get a result at home, but then I guess in the process they ended up with this situation where they're severely limited, right?
Well, just put this as an example. What I find fascinating is, did you know that after this game they're not going to head back to Haiti for at least 3 to 4 weeks, depending on what happens? Because I don't know if you're aware, they didn't qualify for the Gold Cup yet. They still have to play the preliminary games in, I think, the week before the Gold Cup. They're staying in the U.S. until then because they're so wary of these visa issues. They're going to be living out of a hotel for the next 3 to 4 weeks now, just for the Gold Cup. Why didn't you do this before for the World Cup qualifiers if you knew you were going to have any problems? Because now they're going to be stuck in the US. If they make the Gold Cup and play the group stages, theoretically it could be 6 weeks until they head home for some of these players in the middle of an off season. That's brutal. Because I know, for example, Canada, they don't start playing till July. I think it's, a week or two after July, players are going to head home, head back to their teams, and then come back. Well, Haiti's players are just going to be stuck in this bubble for the next 4 to 6, even 8 weeks, depending on how far they go. That's a brutal situation for them. And I mean, again, it's tough, but the federation, they could have just done this earlier. At least they would have had their full team. They could have avoided some of these issues. So I think it's a very interesting point from Brady in terms of, okay, they could have at least played in Chicago, because as brutal as it is for Haiti to have to stay in the U.S., Canada's been in the U.S. for, 2 weeks now. And I mean, while some of the players are based in the U.S., this isn't their home field. Canada would love to play in Vancouver or Toronto right now, but instead they're stuck in Chicago. The fact that Haiti tried to play a home game, fair for them. They wanted the advantage. They certainly got it. And Canada did beat the advantage, but you just looking at the consequences of what happened to them, you maybe wonder if they made a mistake in terms of, okay, actually going back to home for them might have been a little more destructive than it was beneficial.
Yeah, that's great information, great perspective, and that's given me a lot to think about what could have happened and what Haiti might have done differently for this two-legged matchup. But we've talked a lot about the build-up, a lot about how it could play out. Let's talk a little bit about what's at stake, what this match means, because there's going to be a winner, and someone's going to get to progress to the Octo, right? That's what's on everyone's minds. That's what John Herdman, he's said it over and over and over again. The goal is very clear. What it would mean for Canada, first time since 1998, which is whoa. It hits different, even though the fact hasn't changed. It's still looking at that. It's quite jarring. And yeah, you get those 7 home games, right? I think that's hopefully with fans, but whatever circumstance, it's under limited attendance. It's still an opportunity for Canadians to see their national team, and that direct connection is such a special thing. And yeah, it's the first opportunity for this group of players to really get involved. And yeah, Ben put down there at the bottom Herdman's job. I don't know about that one. I think that, how bad would it have to be today for John Herdman to lose his job? Do you think there's any chance that's possible? I'm probably going to say no.
It's an interesting one, though, because if you're going to miss out on a World Cup qualifying cycle, with how important 2026 is, you absolutely have to consider making a change if things were to go wrong, because if as soon as you go out, you prepare for the next one. They have 5 years to prepare for 2026, and with the caliber of players they have, if something were to go wrong, it's something you'd consider. I do think he is pretty safe, and I think Canada should win this game. So for his sake, that's good news. But it's a good question. I think Herdman's job could certainly, if a loss were to happen, talks would at least begin. But in terms of just what's at stake with the Octo, obviously itself, it would be huge just in terms of the quality of play. Obviously there's the fact that the World Cup, you can make the World Cup. Like that's the goal of any national team. If you're not trying to make the World Cup, that's, you're doing something wrong. It doesn't matter.
What are we doing here?
It's like, it doesn't matter if you're Montserrat or if you're France. The goal is to make the World Cup. The goal is to win it. But so making the Octo is big for that. But then it's just the test. This young group needs games like that. Like Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, and company need to go away to Mexico. They need to go away to Honduras, go away to El Salvador, go away to Panama or Curacao, whichever the two make it. Just they need to play those away games and feel that pressure and play together in big games, because for 2026, if they're going to get thrown right into those games, they won't be ready. So it's just big for that. They have the players. I think if you look on paper, they have the players to compete in the Octo, but they just need to make it. And that's always been the problem. They've always been a team you look like, they can maybe do some noise in the Hex. They have some good players, and they never make it there. So you'd be like, well, clearly aren't as good as we thought. Well, this is a chance to make that happen. And just that, for me, it's just the quality of opposition. I just look down at the list, looking at some of the potential away dates, like away to Costa Rica, away to Jamaica. Like, how important would that be for this young group? So I think this is massive. This is massive, especially for the national team, because the better they do, the closer they get to the World Cup, the more recognition that will come, the more coverage, the bigger this whole experience will be. They'll start selling out stadiums, and it'll just be good for the overall health of the sport in the country. It'll be good for CPL, good for MLS teams. It's so big on so many levels that it makes you realize, even though it doesn't really feel like it right now. Like, I don't know about you, this Suriname game was giving me more shakes than this Haiti game. I feel completely calm. But then when you realize what's at stake, you're like, my goodness, this is gigantic. And I think I say this is probably the biggest game, I'd say, in at least, maybe in a decade. I struggle to think of any bigger games, even games where they've been on the precipice of the hex, because it's not the first time they've been on the edge of the hex, but it's never been at a point where they've got the World Cup in 5 years where they're going to play, and they've got a golden generation, or a generation that could be golden. This is just such a critical boiling point for the program, which makes these games so much bigger in my eyes.
Yeah, I think there's always this balance between, you see Canada play the US, or Canada play Mexico, and maybe those matches feel bigger just because of the opponent. But when you consider the circumstances, what happens given a result, this is obviously right up there with anything over the last 10 years, I'd say. And it's that opportunity, Gold Cup, Nations League, whatever, friendlies, what other competitions you have, those are great, but you don't get the same level of best on best kind of full steam ahead that you're getting in a World Cup qualifying phase. And I think that's just the opportunity to get that with nothing held back, and to really evaluate where Canada's at is really, it's essential, right? Like it needs to happen for this Canadian program if they want to be the team they claim to be and the team they want to be. So, no pressure, right?
That's it. No pressure. And I mean, it's going to be huge on so many aspects. Like, I'm just drooling. Think of that home and away with Mexico, just playing the U.S. in World Cup qualifiers, Pulisic versus Davies, McKennie versus David. Like, what more could you want? That's just like the dream of a Canadian national team. And it's one of those, it's just, even making it would be fun. Even if you don't make the World Cup, just the experience, the away days. And the thing is, this Canadian team, as some people have mentioned, this Canadian team is good. It's just, you're so used to being burned by this Canadian team that you're so cautiously optimistic. This is a good team. Like, on paper, this should be a top 3 CONCACAF team. Heck, they are a top 3 CONCACAF team. So there's no reason why we shouldn't, act as if they're that way, and just making them the Octo would only give them more chances to prove that. But maybe kind of on that note, we are nearing the end of our show today. We'll maybe end it a few minutes early so you guys can grab some drinks and grab some food and set up for the game. But shall we bring producer Ben on and maybe talk about this game, the game that could send her the Octo, and do some famous predictions, or update predictions, or revisit some of what we predicted last game before we see what we're going to say for today's game?
Yeah, well, good show so far, guys. I know you guys always do quite a good job. But I'm scared for today's game because Canada has tripped up before. I know a few shows ago we did talk about the last time that Canada tripped up, and it was against, I think it was El Salvador at home. They had to rack up a bunch of goals, and they didn't do it. They scored early, but they weren't able to get out. I think it was 4 goals they needed to turn the goal differential, and they weren't able to do it. And that was at BC Place, right at home. So you're playing, it's effectively away. If you score, you don't get the away goal. I have confidence on one hand, but I'm also insanely nervous on the other, just knowing what Canadian soccer has done in the past. So, I mean, if we're going to make predictions, right, that's why you guys bring me on, is to make these predictions. I haven't gotten one right yet, but I'm feeling like it's going to be 1-1 with some very, very scary things at the end for Canada. I think there's going to be a goal or something at the end, but 1-1. 1-1.
Wow, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, so I saw at the beginning of the show, we had some comments, and I think they pretty much summed up kind of how I'm feeling. There's this trepidation, this nervousness that's been synonymous with being a Canadian men's national team fan for as long as I can remember. And I do feel like if they're able to get through this match, and they're able to get through it relatively comfortably, that'll wash away some of that pain, right? I think this match is big in that emotional respect for Canadian men's national team fans. And I'm not with Ben on this one. I'm sticking with my 2-match plan. So I predicted a 1-1. and it was a 1-0. So honestly, I feel like I was, even though it wasn't the right prediction, I felt like I had a decent feel. I picked a 2-0 for this one. I think given the lineups, given the absences, given the way Herdman has this 3-5-2 dialed in, I'm feeling confident. I'm backing the 2-0, and I think Canada goes through relatively comfortably.
Well, I guess to finish off, I had a 2-2 in the first leg. I guess a 1-0 was a little more cagey. To be fair, on another day, maybe Jonathan David, Kyle Larin put away their breakaways. Maybe Haiti nabs 1 or 2. I am closer to right. There was certainly the chance for a 2-2, but I predicted cagey in the first leg. That's what happened, but I'm sticking with my guns. This is a good Canadian team. I said 3-0 in the second leg, and looking now, I feel like, personally, I could see a 5-1. I could see a 5-0. I think this Canada's going to rock. I think in the second, it's going to be similar to what we saw.
Herdman going in for the kill like he has against some of the smaller nations so far in this window.
The Suriname game provides the sort of game I see. I think it's going to be really cagey at the start. Canada, and then when Canada gets their first goal, it's floodgates, and I think that's fair. Haiti is going to have to open up, and that's where Canada shines. Canada are not a team that, they need that opening goal, but once they get that opening goal, it is floodgates. And heck, that was the case against Haiti in the first leg. Once they got that first goal, they had fantastic chances. I think of that Jonathan David breakaway and Kyle Larin breakaway that on a normal grass surface where the ball wasn't dragging behind them, I think those maybe go in, and it's a 3-4, nil for Canada. So I think I'm saying 3-0. Obviously, I'm sticking with my prediction, but I just feel like, once they get that goal, it's going to be business as usual. But boy, those first 30 minutes are going to be so tense, and I understand that. That's what I'm expecting, but it's too hard to look at this Canadian team and not think that goals eventually over 90 minutes are going to end up in the net, right? Like, that's what they've done for so much of this Herdman era.
Yeah, it's just that first 10, 15, 20, even 30 minutes, right? Can you survive that? Can you get through that? Can you shake off the nerves? Can you calm the game down, control possession, and kind of, flip that switch and dictate? I like the way you've outlined it in terms of being similar to Suriname, where you had that Davies moment and it just really calmed things down and changed the match from there on out. And I feel like that's the difference between, Alex, the results you and I predicted, and Ben, the result you predicted. Can they survive that initial phase? Can Canada flip the switch and kind of take over control? And if they can't do that, then I can see the kind of 1-1 Ben's talking about. But if they're able to do it like they have before, then I think, I favor our result a little bit more.
I mean, early in that first leg, right? It wasn't that comfortable for Canada, nor was it against Suriname.
They haven't gotten off to good starts.
They haven't gotten off to good starts. So
even against Aruba,
if they get an early away goal, everything's off the table, right? Like they could very well be back in this tie very quickly if Canada starts slowly again. And I hope that Herdman isn't going all galaxy brain with this lineup change. It seems like he does that sometimes. It seems like Bev Priestman can do that sometimes with the women's team as well. But hopefully it works out. I do think that Herdman tends to overthink things because what he's been doing in this consistent lineup that he has put out has worked in the past, especially over the last few games. So I hope everything works out tonight, but that doesn't mean that there's not a nervousness I've got.
I'm going to pose one to you. We haven't done this in a while. We usually do this for our Whitecap shows, but I'm starting to see some fun visions in my head. Should we do a wacky prediction for this Canada versus Haiti game? I don't know about you. I'll start. I'll start. Alistair Johnston goal. Like, how outrageous would that be? The kid was playing center back. Now he plays moved up to wing back. He's going to get a little overzealous. I think he finds a goal. So if I'm going to go for a wacky prediction, I'm going to say an Alistair Johnston goal. But I'm curious for what you guys have for a wacky prediction before we round off our pregame show.
I mean, one wacky prediction might be Canada lose the match, but that's not a wacky prediction.
Against a fourth division Portuguese goalkeeper.
I think not necessarily a wacky prediction, but probably a red card. Both teams have said in different ways that it's war tonight, and Lucas Cavallini said it was war, speaking figuratively, and Haiti, I think, took it maybe a little too literal, but I do think that there's going to be a red card tonight. I don't know whether it's going to be a straight red or 2 yellows, but there will be something. And it'll be a bad red too, because CONCACAF.
Well, pick a player for both teams who you think is going to get the red, for Canada or Haiti.
Oh, for Canada, I'll pick Cavallini's going to come on. A little hot-headed, and he's going to get a red for Canada. And then I've got a feeling that it might be the goalkeeper for Haiti.
That's what I was going to say.
And I think Canada, we saw that Canada got several breakaways last time, and I think he's just going to misjudge it and take out a player's feet. And there'll be penalty appeals. Don't know if it'll be a penalty. Don't even know if it'll be a red card. But I think if that happens, that would be the most likely possibility.
Yeah, and Cavallini's the kind of guy that would come on when the other team's down a man and take a red card himself. That's major Cavallini vibes there.
Team player.
Ben, you're absolutely on the money, I think, with that. That's a great wacky prediction. I guess mine, I'm going with goal scorer or, impact contributor off the bench, and it's going to be Alex, someone you picked to start. So Zachary Broguillard. I think he gets involved, and if Canada wins 2-0 like I predicted, he's involved probably in that second goal. I feel like he's just buzzing for the opportunity to get stuck in. And if Richie Larea, needs the night off, then that just provides even more opportunity. Less guys in the fullback wings kind of waiting there to make an impact.
It's certainly a fair shout, and it's
maybe not super wacky, but I think there's a decent chance it could happen.
I mean, it's wacky to say that a right wing back's going to sub on the field and score, get an assist. Like, that is pretty wacky.
That is wacky.
My predictions that are right back's
a little
score
knack,
the goal.
though. He has a knack for coming on and making an impact or scoring kind of crazy goals. I mean, we've seen it with Montreal already this year. It was one of them was a deflection that it was upper 90. It seems to happen to him all the time.
Well, he scored a crazy goal against Aruba, right? When he went in and made a nice spinorama. But Haiti's no Aruba. We're playing an actual team tonight. This is no CONCACAF minnow.
Yeah, well, even though it's no minnow, though, it's certainly a fish that is, primed for Canada to take if they're on their game. And maybe Zachary Broguillard will be the reel that they need to spin in that fish. But if not, it's a good point. Like you mentioned, Haiti's certainly closer to shark than they are minnow. They're not maybe necessarily actually a shark, but enough with the aquatic references. I think that's all she wrote for today's third sub live show. We're going to give you 7 minutes before kickoff, but it's CONCACAF. For all we know, it's not going to start at 6:05. So I just wanted to say shout out to the Euros 2020. It keeps getting me how jarring it is when I open my TV at like 11:59 and there's anthems, and I'm like, I'm used to watching MLS, right? Turn on 11:59, it's curling, and then the Whitecaps at 11, what is it, 7 past the clock, we finally get out of the nowhere the graphics. So shout out to the Euros for that, but shout out also to Ben and Sam for doing a great job as always. Sam co-hosting and Ben doing all the dirty work producing, doing as we mentioned before in the live show. So shout out to him for that. This is the third sub pre-game live show presented by Macy Sports, and make sure to stick around for our fire and video with the song that's been getting stuck in my head a lot these past few games. Canada, we will play for you, and hopefully Canada will play for us today as they have a massive game. So stay tuned for that, check it out, and stay tuned for our next episode.
What's up, bro?
There's not a rule that you have to use the 3 subs.
He's the best left back.
1,000 to 1, now the odds they're giving us. A lot of them are in for a surprise. We've got a mighty team that no one else has seen. The stars of Canada are on the rise. But who can lay down odds on the hearts of 11 men? Oh Canada, our hearts are ringing true. We've won for you before and we'll win for you again. Oh Canada, we'll proudly play for you. Dale Mitchell has touches like no one else has got. In Mexico we'll show them how to play. And striker George Pecos has a rifle for a shot. And Tino Lantieri saves the day. Bobby Landerduzzi and Chris Wilson will be there. Their years of dedication have come through. Their courage and their pride with their teammates they have shared. Oh Canada, we'll share it now with you. But who can lay down odds on the hearts of 11 men? Oh Canada, our hearts are ringing true. We've won for you before and we'll win for you again. Oh Canada, we'll proudly play for you. To Mexico we go with an optimistic heart. There is nothing that we cannot do. Reagan, Gray, and Samuel, Bridge, and Sweeney are just parts of a mighty team that proudly plays for you. But